The story you tell yourself becomes the world you live in. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." This is the core of Stoic wisdom. Your mind is not a fixed record of events, but a living script you can rewrite. This video offers 26 transformative habits to re-engineer your entire perspective. You will gain a complete mental toolkit to build resilience and find profound peace regardless of your circumstances. How is it possible to see setbacks as fuel and not failure? What single mental shift can dissolve most of your daily anxiety? By the end, you will possess a new operating system for your mind. Which of your current beliefs about control would you be willing to question first? What if you could instantly eliminate half of your worries? The first and most powerful habit for rewriting your life is the Stoic dichotomy of control. This is the bedrock of all serenity. It begins with a simple but radical act of sorting. You learn to separate everything in your life into two distinct categories. What is up to you and what is not? Your own judgments, your intentions, your desires and aversions, these are within your power. Everything else, from the weather to the traffic, from your reputation to the actions of other people, is ultimately not. The philosopher Epictetus opens his manual for life with this exact point. He says, "Some things are within our power while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion. Not within our power are our body, our property, our reputation, our public office." The moment you internalize this, you stop wasting your energy on battles you cannot win. Think of being stuck in a traffic jam. You can scream at the car, you can pound the steering wheel, you can wish the universe were different. None of that will move the traffic. What you do control is your reaction. You can choose to use the time to listen to an audiobook, to sit in silence, to practice patience. The traffic is the same, but your suffering is optional. This habit is a filter for your attention. It asks you to constantly check your focus. Is my effort going toward what I can actually influence? So take a mental inventory right now. Think of 3 things that are causing you anxiety today. Now categorize them. Is this within my control, or is it outside my control? The practice of asking this single question over and over begins to rewire your entire relationship with life. Before you check your phone, try this 5-minute mental exercise. This is the second habit, the morning contemplation of the day ahead. The Stoics called it premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. That sounds dark, but its purpose is the opposite. It is not pessimism. It is a vaccine for the soul. By imagining potential challenges and setbacks each morning, you inoculate your mind against the shock and disappointment they could cause later. You are not inviting trouble. You are building a fortress of resilience before the day even begins. Seneca wrote extensively about this. He advised that we should say to ourselves each morning, "I will meet with interfering, ungrateful, insolent, deceitful, envious, unsocial people." He was not being cynical, he was being realistic. By anticipating these frictions, you strip them of their power to disrupt your peace. When the difficult person arrives at your meeting, you are not thrown off course. You are prepared, your calm response is already rehearsed. Think of a professional about to pitch a crucial project. Instead of just hoping for the best, they spend a few minutes in the quiet of the morning visualizing the scenario. They picture the client's skeptical face, they hear the potential objections, they feel the sting of a possible rejection in their mind first. Then, they mentally rehearse their response. Not with anger or defensiveness, but with poise and clarity. They see themselves acknowledging the feedback, asking thoughtful questions, and maintaining their composure. When they walk into that room, they carry a deep-seated calm. The outcome is still uncertain, but their inner stability is not. So your challenge is this. Tomorrow morning, before the world demands your attention, give yourself just 5 minutes. Visualize one single obstacle your day might present. It could be a difficult conversation, a task you are dreading, or a potential delay. Now, see yourself facing it not with frustration, but with steady resolve. Watch how this simple act of preparation begins to rewrite your entire relationship with the day's inevitable friction. How often do you truly audit your own thoughts and actions at the end of the day? This nightly ritual is the third transformative habit, the evening review. Where the morning prepared you for the day ahead, the evening is your private court of reflection. You sit as both the accused and the judge, not to punish yourself, but to learn. The goal is continuous progress, not perfection. It is a tool for honest self-examination, a way to measure your actions against your Stoic ideals and identify exactly where you can grow. Seneca championed this practice in his writings. He advised, let your sleep be preceded by an examination of your whole day. What bad habit have you checked today? Which fault did you stand against? In what part are you better? Your soul should be summoned to give account of itself. This is not about guilt, it is about clarity. Imagine someone ending their day. They recall a moment in the afternoon when a colleague criticized their work. Their immediate reaction was a flash of anger and a sharp, defensive reply. During their evening review, they revisit that scene. They do not just replay the event. They investigate the judgment that sparked their anger. They see that their internal narrative was, this person is disrespecting me and my abilities. That was the raw impression. The Stoic work happens next. They ask, was that judgment true? Was the criticism entirely within my control? Could I have chosen a different interpretation? Perhaps that the colleague is simply under pressure, or that the feedback, however poorly delivered, contained a useful grain of truth. By dissecting the moment, they pinpoint the exact link in the chain where their philosophy broke. They see that their peace was not stolen by the colleague's words, but by their own assent to a negative judgment. So, as you finish this day, take just a few moments for this practice. Look back over the last several hours. Can you identify one single instance where you could have applied a Stoic principle more effectively? Perhaps a moment of anxiety over something outside your control, or a flash of irritation you now understand differently. This gentle, honest audit is how you actively rewrite your story, one day at a time. Let's try a thought experiment that can instantly shrink your problems. Close your eyes for a moment and picture yourself floating high above the earth, looking down. You see your city as a tiny grid of lights, then your country as a shape on a globe, and finally the whole planet, a silent blue marble hanging in the immense blackness of space. From this vantage point, that urgent email, that tense disagreement, that looming deadline, where are they now? This is the fourth habit, cognitive distancing, often called the view from above. It is the practice of mentally stepping back from the immediate heat of a situation to see it within a vast, objective context. The emotional charge simply cannot survive this shift in perspective. Marcus Aurelius was a master of this. In his private meditations, he constantly reminded himself of his place in the cosmos. He wrote, "Remember how man is a little soul carrying a corpse, and that all things are destined for either transformation or oblivion." He was not being morbid, he was seeking liberation. By confronting the reality of our smallness in the grand scheme of time and space, he dissolved the artificial importance we assign to our daily dramas. Consider a personal conflict, perhaps a heated argument with a family member. In the moment, it feels all-consuming, a monumental event that defines your entire day. Now apply the view from above. Imagine watching that same argument from an airplane window 1,000 feet up. The people are specks, the voices are silent. The raw emotion that felt so world-ending is now invisible, just a tiny event in one tiny house on one street in one city among millions. Pull the perspective back even further to a historical scale. How will this argument seem in 1 month? It will likely be a vague memory. In 1 year, probably forgotten entirely. In 1 century, it will be as if it never happened. This is not to trivialize your feelings, but to free you from being enslaved by them. The goal is to trade a subjective storm for an objective calm. So the next time you feel overwhelmed by anger or anxiety or any powerful emotion, pause and ask yourself a simple series of questions. How will this seem in a month? How about in a year? And finally, what is its true weight in the vast, silent expanse of human history? This mental space is where you find the clarity to respond wisely, instead of merely reacting blindly. What if your greatest setbacks were actually your greatest gifts? This is the radical invitation of the 5th habit, Amor Fati, the love of fate. It is the conscious decision to not merely endure what life throws at you, but to embrace it, to welcome it, and to see it as an essential part of your story. This is not passive resignation. It is the ultimate act of empowerment, transforming every event, especially the difficult ones, into fuel for your development. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, who captured this spirit perfectly, wrote, "My formula for greatness in a human being is Amor Fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity." This sentiment is deeply rooted in the Stoic acceptance of nature's will. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to accept everything that happens as if he had asked for it himself. He wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it. When you adopt this mindset, you stop fighting reality. You begin to see obstacles not as barriers, but as the very raw material for building your character. Consider a dedicated athlete who suffers a severe injury right before a major competition. The initial reaction might be despair, a feeling that their entire world has collapsed. But with Amor Fati, the perspective shifts entirely. They begin to see the forced rest not as a punishment, but as an opportunity. It is a chance to develop mental fortitude they never knew they needed, to study the strategy of their sport from a new angle, to strengthen other parts of their body, and to cultivate a patience that will serve them long after the physical injury has healed. The setback becomes the very thing that forges a more complete and resilient competitor. This is how you rewrite your life story. You take the narrative of victimhood and you tear it up. You write a new one where you are the author who uses every plot twist, every antagonist to create a richer, more compelling character. So bring to mind a past difficulty you once resented. It could be a job you lost, a relationship that ended, a failure that stung. Now actively reframe it. Challenge yourself to list 3 specific ways that event ultimately helped you grow. Perhaps it led you to a better path, taught you a critical lesson about yourself, or simply built a callus of resilience you still rely on today. This is the alchemy of Amor Fati, turning the lead of misfortune into the gold of wisdom. When was the last time you chose to be uncomfortable on purpose? This question lies at the heart of the 6th transformative habit, practicing voluntary discomfort. It is the deliberate act of seeking out minor hardships to build a fortress of resilience within yourself. The goal is not self-punishment, but immunization. By willingly experiencing small doses of lack or difficulty, you destroy the fear of loss and learn to find contentment regardless of your external circumstances. You prove to yourself that you can handle more than you think. Seneca explored this idea with powerful clarity. He advised that we should periodically practice poverty, to actually feel the want of things we fear to lose. He said, set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, is this the condition that I feared? The philosopher Musonius Rufus also taught that endurance must be developed through practice. He argued that by willingly embracing cold, heat, thirst, hunger, and plain living, we build the strength to face the unavoidable hardships of life with unshakable composure. Think of this practice as a form of mental and spiritual vaccination. A vaccine introduces a weakened version of a virus to train your immune system. In the same way, voluntary discomfort introduces a manageable version of hardship to train your resilience. When you choose to take a cold shower, you are not just shocking your body. You are confronting the immediate impulse for comfort and warmth, and you are consciously overriding it. You are building the muscle of willpower. When you choose to skip a meal and sit with the feeling of hunger, you are not starving yourself. You are proving to your own mind that the sensation of hunger is temporary and manageable, that your peace does not depend on a full stomach. When you choose to walk somewhere instead of driving on a cold day, you are teaching yourself that minor physical discomfort will not break you. Each small act is a declaration of independence from fortune's whims. So here is a challenge for you this week. Choose one small, voluntary discomfort to undertake. It could be as simple as taking a cold shower for 1 minute, fasting for 1 meal, or sleeping on the floor for 1 night. As you do it, pay close attention to the feeling that arises. Notice the initial resistance, the voice that says this is unnecessary or unpleasant. Then, observe the quiet strength that emerges when you move through it. That feeling, that quiet triumph over your own impulses, is the essence of self-mastery. It is the proof that you are rewriting your story from someone who flees discomfort to someone who can stand firm within it. What if you had a wise, unshakable mentor living in your mind? This is the 7th habit, the contemplation of the ideal sage. Think of it as a personal mentorship program with a figure who embodies perfect wisdom and virtue. Your task is to hold this imagined person in your thoughts, using their example as a clear standard for your own judgments and actions. Whenever you face a difficult choice or a surge of emotion, you simply ask, what would my ideal sage do in this situation? The answer provides an immediate North Star for virtuous conduct. This practice was a common Stoic exercise. Epictetus explicitly advised his students to keep the image of a great philosopher like Socrates constantly at hand. He said, have the death of Socrates at your fingertips and other examples of people who have met their end with nobility. He was not encouraging a morbid fixation, but offering a powerful model of courage and integrity in the face of fear. The sage is not a distant, mythical figure, but a practical tool for self-guidance. Imagine you receive harsh, perhaps unfair, criticism at work. Your raw, instinctive reaction might be to lash out defensively or to retreat into resentment. This is where you pause and consult your inner sage. You picture their calm demeanor. You see them listening carefully, absorbing the feedback without flinching. You watch as they sift through the words, discarding the harsh tone while looking for any useful truth that might be hidden within. They respond not with anger, but with measured reason, perhaps saying, "Thank you for the feedback. I will consider your points carefully." By visualizing this ideal response, you create a blueprint for your own. You are not suppressing your feelings, you are choosing a wiser path that your emotions were obscuring. So take a moment to define your own ideal sage. What are their 3 core traits? Perhaps it is unshakable calm, profound courage, or radical kindness. Now think about your day ahead. Which one of these 3 traits can you consciously choose to embody in a single situation today? Maybe you will practice that calm during your commute, demonstrate courage in a difficult conversation, or extend unexpected kindness to a stranger. This is how the sage moves from an abstract idea to a living influence, rewriting your actions one deliberate choice at a time. Let's learn the one-sentence trick that can diffuse most negative emotions. Your mind constantly narrates your life, but this narrator often adds dramatic commentary that fuels your distress. The eighth habit, objective representation, is the practice of stripping that commentary away and describing events to yourself in plain, unadorned facts. It is the mental discipline of separating what actually happened from the story you are telling yourself about what happened. The core Stoic insight is that we are disturbed not by events themselves, but by our interpretations of them. Your opinion is the source of your suffering. Marcus Aurelius put this with stunning clarity in his Meditations. He wrote, "Take away your opinion, and then there is taken away the complaint, I have been harmed." Take away the complaint, I have been harmed, and the harm is taken away. The event remains, but your emotional reaction to it vanishes the moment you withdraw the judgment that labeled it as bad. This is not about suppressing your feelings, but about examining the thought that created them. Imagine you are working on a critical report and your computer suddenly crashes, losing your last hour of work. The immediate, automatic narrative might scream, "This is a catastrophe. I am ruined. This always happens to me." Now, apply objective representation. You pause and state only the observable facts. The computer software stopped responding and closed without saving my most recent changes. That is all. The event is the same, but the emotional typhoon is gone. The first statement is a judgment-laden story that triggers panic and frustration. The second is a simple, neutral fact that allows for a calm, solution-oriented response, like reopening the program and starting again. Or consider a social situation. Someone you know passes you in the hallway without saying hello. The judgmental narrative might be, "They are ignoring me. They must be angry with me. What did I do wrong?" The objective representation is simply, "That person walked past me without making verbal or eye contact." One version creates a spiral of social anxiety and self-doubt. The other describes a common, often meaningless event that requires no further emotional investment. Your task is to become a reporter of your own life, committed only to the facts. So, bring to mind a recent situation that bothered you. It could be a small frustration or a larger worry. Now, challenge yourself to write down or simply state a single sentence that describes only what occurred, without any emotional adjectives or catastrophic predictions. Change my boss criticized my presentation to my boss suggested 3 specific areas for improvement. Change this traffic is unbearable to the cars on the highway are moving very slowly. Listen to the profound difference in how those 2 statements feel. This one-sentence recalibration is how you reclaim authorship of your inner world. What if remembering your death was the key to living fully? This is the profound and counterintuitive invitation of the 9th habit, Memento Mori, the remembrance that you must die. Far from being a dark fixation, this practice is the ultimate clarifier, a lens that instantly brings your life into sharp focus. It strips away the non-essential and forces you to confront what truly matters. When you hold the reality of your finite time with gentle awareness, you stop postponing your life. You begin to act with a new kind of urgency, not frantic anxiety, but purposeful dedication. Marcus Aurelius regularly turned to this thought to ground himself. He wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." He was not being dramatic. He was installing a mental governor against procrastination and pettiness. Seneca echoed this with equal power, arguing that life is long if you know how to use it. He observed that we are not given a short life, but we make it short, and we are not ill-supplied but wasteful of it. The contemplation of death is the antidote to that wastefulness. Imagine you find yourself in the middle of a heated, petty argument with a loved one. The disagreement is spiraling over something trivial, like a forgotten chore or a careless comment. Now apply the lens of Memento Mori. In your mind, you fast forward to the end of your life. You are on your deathbed looking back on this very moment. From that ultimate vantage point, does this argument hold any weight at all? Does being right about this small matter seem important? The perspective is almost comically liberating. The heat drains from the conflict instantly, replaced by a clear desire for reconciliation and connection. Or consider a goal you have been procrastinating on, perhaps writing a book, learning a language, or mending a broken relationship. The thought that you have all the time in the world is the very illusion that allows you to delay. But the reminder that your time is limited and uncertain, that today could genuinely be your last, changes the calculus entirely. It transforms a vague someday into a decisive now. So here is a challenge to make this practice immediate and personal. Before this day ends, take a quiet moment to ask yourself this single question. If I knew with certainty that this was my final day, what one thing would I do differently? Perhaps you would finally make that phone call you have been avoiding, express your love more openly, or simply sit in stillness and appreciate the sky. Do not let the answer remain a thought, let it become an action. This is how remembering the end rewrites the story of your beginning and your middle, infusing every single day with profound and purposeful life. What if your personal story was just one paragraph in the story of humanity? This is the 10th transformative habit, Sympatheia, the deep awareness of our interconnectedness. It is the practice of dissolving the illusion of separation, of seeing yourself not as an isolated individual, but as a vital thread woven into the vast fabric of the universe and human society. This habit actively cultivates empathy, replacing feelings of loneliness with a profound sense of belonging and a natural desire to contribute to the common good. Your life is not a solo performance, but a single, essential note in a grand cosmic symphony. Marcus Aurelius constantly returned to this theme in his private writings, reminding himself of his place in the whole. He wrote, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." And elsewhere, we are made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids, like the rows of the upper and lower teeth. To act against one another is contrary to nature. He saw every person, even those who acted disagreeably, as his fellow citizen in a single, universal city. This perspective fundamentally rewires your experience of daily life. Consider the morning commute, a scenario often defined by solitary frustration. You are sitting in your car, impatient, viewing every other driver as an obstacle in your path. Now apply the lens of Sympatheia. Look at the person in the car next to you. They are not just a competitor for space on the road. They are a parent rushing to drop a child at school, a nurse heading to a long shift, a student anxious about an exam. Each car contains a life just as complex and full of hopes as your own. The traffic jam is no longer a personal inconvenience, but a shared human moment. A temporary gathering of thousands of stories, all moving, however slowly, toward their own destinations. Your frustration softens into a strange, quiet solidarity. This expansive view naturally leads to action. When you feel connected, you are moved to support the web you are part of. So, your challenge today is a simple but profound one. Perform one small, completely anonymous act of kindness. It could be paying for the coffee of the person behind you in the drive-thru, leaving an encouraging note on a coworker's desk, or simply letting someone merge in traffic with a genuine wave. Do it without any expectation of thanks or recognition. As you do it, hold the thought that you are not just helping one person, you are strengthening the entire network. You are actively weaving a stronger, kinder thread into the fabric of the whole. This is how you rewrite your story from one of isolation to one of essential, purposeful connection. Could you go an entire hour speaking only when absolutely necessary? This quiet challenge lies at the heart of the 11th habit, the practice of silence and restraint of speech. It is the discipline of listening more than you speak, of deliberately choosing to hold your tongue, not out of shyness, but out of a profound respect for the power of words. This habit trains you to allow only true and necessary impressions to enter and exit your mind, creating a sanctuary of inner peace that external noise cannot penetrate. The Stoics saw careless speech as a leak in your mental fortress, draining your energy and clarity with every unnecessary word. Epictetus framed this with his characteristic bluntness. He said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." This was not just a clever saying, it was a practical design for a wise life. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, taught that the virtue of silence was the foundation of a rational character, because a mind that is not constantly chattering to the outside world is a mind free to observe, to learn, and to understand. When you practice restraint, you are not missing out, you are tuning in. Imagine you are in a tense meeting where a colleague unfairly blames you for a missed deadline. The immediate, burning urge is to defend yourself, to list your reasons, to fire back with a counter-accusation. This is the critical moment for the practice of silence. Instead of reacting, you consciously choose to pause. You let the words hang in the air. You feel the heat of the provocation. You observe the powerful impulse to speak, but you do not give it the reins. In that quiet space, several things happen. You realize the attack says more about their state of mind than your performance. You give yourself time to formulate a response rooted in reason, not in raw emotion. And very often, you find that the other person, confronted with your calm silence, begins to backtrack or clarify on their own. Your restraint becomes a mirror that reflects their own agitation back at them, often diffusing the entire situation without you uttering a single defensive word. Your challenge is to become an anthropologist of your own speech for just one day. Carry a small mental notepad and simply observe. How many times do you speak out of habit, filling a silence with chatter? How often do you engage in gossip or complain about something you cannot change? Do not judge yourself, just collect the data. You may be astonished by the sheer volume of unnecessary noise you generate. This simple act of observation is the first, most powerful step toward reclaiming the quiet power that silence offers. Your most powerful tool for self-transformation might already be on your desk. This is the 12th habit, journaling as a philosophical practice. It moves far beyond simply logging daily events. It is an active, deliberate dialogue with your best self, a structured method to clarify your thoughts and engrave Stoic principles into the very fabric of your mind. You are not just recording your life, you are actively editing and improving the manuscript in real time. This is proactive mental training, a workout for your judgment and your character. The most famous example of this practice is not a formal book of philosophy, but a private journal never intended for publication. Marcus Aurelius' Meditations was his personal notebook, a series of reminders and conversations with himself. He was constantly writing to reinforce his own understanding, to admonish his own weaknesses, and to call himself back to virtue. He was his own most patient teacher and his own most honest student. Your own journal can serve the same purpose. It becomes a private space where you can untangle complex emotions, debate your own initial impressions, and solidify your intentions. Consider a practical way to start. Instead of writing a sprawling account of your day, you use targeted philosophical prompts. At the end of the day, you might ask yourself, what Stoic principle did I apply today? Perhaps you successfully used the view from above to calm a moment of panic, or you practiced Amor Fati when a plan fell through. Or, looking forward, you could write about how you can better use the dichotomy of control tomorrow. You might identify a specific meeting you are anxious about and preemptively sort what is truly yours to manage from what is not. This turns vague worry into a concrete plan of action. The physical act of writing is crucial. It slows down your thinking, forcing clarity and precision that fleeting thoughts lack. So, your invitation is this. Tonight, before you sleep, take out a notebook or open a blank document. Write just one single paragraph in answer to this question. What is one thing I learned about myself today? It does not need to be profound. It could be as simple as learning that you are more impatient than you realized in traffic, or that a moment of quiet reflection brought you more peace than you expected. This small, consistent act of self-examination is how you build an unshakable friendship with your own mind, rewriting your story with intention and insight. How would you behave if you knew your next success and your next failure were equally unimportant? This is the precise balancing act of the 13th habit, cultivating equanimity in success and failure. It is the training to meet both favorable and unfavorable outcomes with the same steady, internal calm. The core insight is that both praise and blame, victory and loss are external events classified by the Stoics as indifferent. They are not inherently good or bad, because the only true good is your own virtue, your own excellent character, which remains entirely within your power regardless of the outcome. To be thrown into euphoria by a win is just as much a disruption to your peace as being plunged into despair by a loss. Your inner citadel should be weatherproof in both sunshine and storm. Seneca wrote extensively on this in his letters, warning about the slippery nature of fortune. He advised treating both her gifts and her takings with the same detached hand. He said, "Let not the applause of the crowd move you, whom you cannot approve, nor the censure of the mob terrify you." He was not promoting coldness, but a profound stability that cannot be bought with praise or broken by blame. Epictetus gave his students similar guidance, reminding them not to be puffed up by the applause of the masses. He pointed out that the cheers of the crowd are as fickle as the wind, and to build your self-worth upon them is to build your house on shifting sand. Consider the mindset of an athlete who has deeply internalized this practice. After winning a major championship, they feel unnatural joy, but they do not attach their entire identity to the medal. They understand the win was the result of many factors, some within their control, like their training and effort, and many outside it, like the performance of their opponents or even a lucky bounce. They accept the celebration without letting it inflate their ego. Now, picture that same athlete losing a close match in the next season. They feel the natural disappointment, but they do not descend into self-loathing or blame. They understand the loss is an event, not a verdict on their worth. They analyze what they can control, their own preparation and execution, and they let go of the rest. Their core self, their character, remains unshaken. The win did not make them a better person, and the loss does not make them a worse one. So, bring to mind your own recent experiences. Recall a recent high, a moment of praise, a success at work or in a personal endeavor. Now, recall a recent low, a criticism, a project that did not go as planned. As you reflect on these two moments, ask yourself with gentle honesty, was my inner state equally stable in both? Did the applause make me feel significantly more whole, or did the criticism make me feel significantly less worthy? This honest reflection is the first step toward building an equilibrium that no external result can ever shake. A single moment of pause can be the difference between reaction and response. This is the 14th habit, the Discipline of Assent, and it functions as a mental firewall between an external event and your internal world. You learn to install a deliberate pause button between your raw impressions and your automatic beliefs. Every sight, sound, and interaction delivers an initial impression to your mind, a kind of data packet. The discipline of assent is the practice of refusing to automatically accept that data as truth. You become the gatekeeper, scrutinizing every impression before you grant it the power to influence your emotions and actions. This is the very heart of Stoic psychology, the mechanism that makes all the other habits possible. Epictetus laid out this principle with absolute clarity. He taught men are disturbed not by things but by the views which they take of them. The event itself is neutral until you pass judgment on it. Your assent, your agreement with a negative interpretation, is what transforms a neutral event into a personal catastrophe. Consider the common experience of feeling insulted. Someone makes a critical remark about your work. The raw impression arrives like a lightning strike, carrying the immediate, unexamined narrative, "They have disrespected me." This is an attack. Without the discipline of assent, this impression instantly becomes a belief, triggering a cascade of anger, defensiveness, and resentment. But with your pause button engaged, you intercept that impression at the gate. You hold it up to the light of reason and ask a series of simple, piercing questions. Is this person's opinion of me within my control? The answer is a clear no. Is their comment an objective, universal truth, or is it merely their subjective perspective, filtered through their own moods and biases? Is it even true? Perhaps they are having a terrible day, or they misunderstood the context, or the criticism, however poorly delivered, contains a tiny, useful grain of truth you can extract. By interrogating the impression, you drain it of its emotional venom. You can then choose to assent to a more rational, peaceful alternative. You might decide, this is one person's opinion which I cannot control, and it does not define my worth. The event is identical, but your suffering has been voluntarily disarmed. Your challenge is to become a detective of your own thoughts for the next 24 hours. Identify one single automatic negative thought you had today. It might have been a flash of anxiety when you saw a crowded inbox, or a spike of insecurity when you compared yourself to someone else. Now replay that moment and consciously withhold your assent. Challenge the initial impression. Ask, is this thought completely true? What is a more balanced, more rational story I can choose to believe instead? This simple act of mental interrogation is how you reclaim sovereignty over your inner kingdom, rewriting your story from one of automatic reaction to one of deliberate, chosen response. What if everyone you met was a teacher sent to show you a part of yourself? This is the 15th habit, seeing the good in others, a deliberate practice that reframes every human interaction as a lesson in patience and perception. It asks you to actively hunt for the virtues and shared rationality in other people, especially in those who challenge you the most. The Stoics believed that no one chooses evil for its own sake. People act wrongly out of a kind of ignorance, a mistaken belief about what is truly good for them. Your task then is not to condemn their error, but to patiently correct your own judgment of them. You move from being a critic of their character to a student of human nature. Marcus Aurelius constantly drilled this into his own mind. Faced with the immense burden of ruling an empire and dealing with difficult senators, courtiers, and generals, he did not retreat into bitterness. Instead, he made lists. In his meditations, he wrote down the positive qualities of the people he found most trying. He would note a person's diligence, their loyalty to their family, their dedication to their own sense of duty, however misplaced it might seem. By consciously focusing on these flickers of good, he maintained his own peace and his capacity for rational leadership. He was not excusing bad behavior, he was protecting his own soul from the corrosion of resentment. Imagine you have a colleague whose methods constantly frustrate you. They are overly critical in meetings, they micromanage shared projects, and their communication feels abrasive. Your default narrative might cast them as the villain in your workday. Now apply this habit. Your new assignment is to become a detective for their hidden virtues. For 1 week, you consciously look for evidence of their good qualities. You might notice that their criticism, though harsh, is almost always meticulously detailed and fact-based, revealing a deep desire for accuracy. Their micromanagement might stem from a profound sense of responsibility for the project's outcome, a form of dedication, however anxious. You do not have to agree with their methods, but you begin to see the human striving behind them. This shift does not change them, but it completely transforms your experience of working with them. The friction loses its personal sting, becoming simply a difference in approach, a puzzle to be managed with wisdom rather than a battle to be fought with irritation. So, bring to mind one person in your life you currently find difficult. It could be a relative, a neighbor, or someone you interact with regularly. Now, challenge yourself to identify just one single positive character trait they possess. It might be their consistency, their protectiveness over their team, or even their blunt honesty. Hold that one quality in your mind the next time you interact with them. Watch how this small, intentional shift in your focus begins to rewrite the entire dynamic, turning a source of annoyance into an opportunity for your own growth in understanding. Stop for a moment and find 3 things in this room you can be grateful for. The hum of the electricity giving you light, the chair supporting your body, the simple fact of your own breath. This immediate act of noticing is the essence of the 16th habit, practicing gratitude for the present. It is the consistent choice to acknowledge and appreciate the goods that are here and now, rather than allowing your attention to be hijacked by what is absent or what you fear losing. The Stoics saw the present moment as the only slice of time we ever truly possess, the only arena where our virtue and our life can actually be lived. To see it as insufficient is to miss the entire point of existence. Your life is happening right here, in this room, in this breath. Epictetus offered a breathtakingly simple formula for this. He said, "Do not seek for things to happen as you wish, but wish for them as they happen, and your life will be serene." This is the alchemy of gratitude. It transforms your relationship with reality itself. You are no longer a beggar pleading with the universe for a different set of circumstances. You become a connoisseur of the riches that are already spread before you. Consider the sheer miracle of your own functioning body. Your heart pumps blood without any conscious command from you. Your lungs draw in air. Your eyes are translating these patterns of light into coherent meaning. These are not small things. They are profound gifts that you receive every single second. Or think of the warm room you are in. It represents a chain of human effort and ingenuity, from the logger who cut the wood, to the engineer who designed the heating system, to the sun that provided the energy eons ago. The clean water from your tap is a luxury that vast portions of humanity still dreams of. When you focus on these present, tangible goods, the phantom worries about future prestige or past regrets begin to lose their substance. They are stories, the warmth of the room, the water in your glass, these are real. Your challenge is to build this into a daily ritual, a form of Stoic gratitude. At the end of today, before you sleep, do not just review your faults. Also, mentally thank the people and things that silently supported you. Thank the bus driver who got you home safely. Thank the farmer who grew the food you ate. Thank your own legs for carrying you and your mind for allowing you to learn. This practice does not ignore life's difficulties, but it firmly anchors you in the abundant reality of the present, where your power and your peace actually reside. The obstacle is not in the way, the obstacle is the way. This 17th habit turns the entire concept of a problem on its head. It is the active reframing of every barrier, challenge, or setback as the very path itself, the precise training ground you need to practice a specific virtue like courage, patience, or creativity. Challenges are not interruptions to your life story. They are the raw material provided by nature for its construction. They are the chisel and marble, and your character is the statue waiting to be revealed. Marcus Aurelius captured this with stunning clarity in his private journal. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." He was not offering a poetic consolation prize. He was stating a practical law of spiritual physics. A wall does not block your path. It presents you with the opportunity to learn how to climb, to tunnel, or to build a ladder. The obstacle itself contains the hidden curriculum for your growth. Consider the story of a failed business venture. The initial loss can feel like a devastating end, a verdict of personal failure. But with this 17th habit, the entire narrative shifts. The failure is no longer a stop sign. It is a detour sign pointing toward a necessary lesson. Perhaps the collapse of that first business taught the founder profound lessons about cash flow management that they would have never learned in success. It might have revealed a critical weakness in their leadership style, forcing them to develop more empathy and better communication. It could have burned away a naive optimism, replacing it with a resilient, clear-eyed determination. That failed venture becomes the indispensable fire that forges the wisdom and toughness required to build the next, far more resilient and successful enterprise. The obstacle was not the failure of the first business. The obstacle was the essential education needed for the second. So bring to mind one current obstacle in your own life. It could be a difficult person, a financial strain, or a personal limitation. Now look at it not as a villain in your story, but as a demanding and specific coach. What single virtue is this obstacle giving you the chance to practice? If it is a difficult person, is the virtue patience? If it is a financial strain, is it resourcefulness? If it is a personal limitation, is it the courage to ask for help? Name the virtue, and you transform the obstacle from a foe into your most effective teacher. What does it mean to live a life that is truly natural for a human being? This 18th habit invites you to align your entire existence with a single, powerful principle, living according to nature. For the Stoics, this was the ultimate goal of life, but it has nothing to do with foraging for berries or abandoning modern society. To live according to nature is to fulfill your unique human design. You are a creature endowed with a profound gift, the capacity for reason, and you are inherently social, wired for cooperation and community. Living naturally, therefore, means using your reason to act virtuously for the common good. It is about becoming an excellent human, in the same way an excellent oak tree fulfills its nature by being strong and providing shade. The founder of Stoicism, Zeno, defined the goal of life concisely as living in agreement with nature. Later Stoics like Seneca and Marcus Aurelius expanded this, explaining that since we are fragments of the universal, divine reason, to live in accordance with our own rational nature is to live in harmony with the cosmos itself. Your personal reason is a small piece of the world's reason. When you act against it, you are like a single cell in a body rebelling against the health of the whole, causing discord in the system and suffering in yourself. Consider a practical fork in the road you might face. You are working on a team project and you see an opportunity to claim sole credit for a piece of work, ensuring you look good to your manager. The selfish impulse feels powerful, almost instinctive, but is it natural for a human? Apply the test of reason. A rational being understands that trust and cooperation are the foundations of any lasting success. Acting on that selfish impulse severs those bonds, damaging the social fabric you are designed to be part of. It is a short-term gain that violates your long-term nature. Now consider the alternative, acting for the common good. You make a point of praising your colleague's contribution in the meeting. This action springs from reason, it strengthens the social unit, and it builds your own character through the virtue of justice. This choice, though it may feel less immediately gratifying, is the one that is fully aligned with your nature as a rational and social being. So, as you look toward tomorrow, bring this question to one single decision you know you will have to make. It could be as simple as how you speak to a customer service agent, or as complex as a financial choice. Before you act, pause and ask yourself, does this choice align with my best, most rational self? Am I acting as a fragment of the whole or as an isolated island? The answer will guide you not toward a primitive existence, but toward the most civilized and complete version of yourself. We are born for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids. This biological truth is the foundation of the 19th habit, the practice of philanthropy, the love of humanity. This is not a sentimental suggestion, but a core Stoic duty. Engaging in acts of service and kindness is the natural output of a creature designed for community. It is how you fulfill your function. To live for yourself alone is as unnatural as a hand refusing to work with the arm. Your own fulfillment is found in being useful to the whole. Marcus Aurelius returned to this idea again and again, drilling it into his own imperial mind. He wrote, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." And in another moment of reflection, he reminded himself, men exist for the sake of one another. Either teach them then or bear with them. Helping others is not a burden you carry or extra credit for being a good person. It is the essential expression of your rational and social nature. When you act with kindness, you are not depleting your own resources. You are aligning with your deepest design, and that alignment generates a profound and lasting sense of purpose. Think of the simplest daily interactions. Holding a door open for someone whose arms are full of packages is not just politeness. It is a micro-act of social cooperation, a tiny thread that strengthens the fabric of the community. Offering genuine, specific praise to a coworker, not flattery, but a truthful acknowledgement of their skill, is an act of justice. It reinforces what is good. Volunteering your time, even for 1 hour a month, at a local shelter or library, is a direct application of the principle that we are made for each other. These actions seem small, but they are the practical repetitions that build the muscle of universal love. The beautiful, almost secret reward of this practice is its boomerang effect on your own mind. The act of giving focus instantly pulls you out of your own narrow concerns and private anxieties. Your own worries seem to shrink when your attention is actively directed toward easing another person's burden, however slight. So your challenge for tomorrow is this: perform one single, intentional act of service. Do not let it be random. Plan it. It could be as simple as buying a meal for a stranger in need, writing a heartfelt thank you note to a mentor, or spending 15 minutes calling a relative who lives alone. As you perform this act, pay close attention to the internal shift. Observe the quiet warmth that spreads through your own chest, the subtle lightening of your own mood. This feeling is not an accident. It is the confirmation that you are living as nature intended, rewriting your story from a solitary character into an essential part of a much larger, interconnected narrative. Stoicism does not ask you to become a stone devoid of all feeling. Its goal is to free you from being enslaved by the passions that hijack your reason. This is the 20th habit, cultivating apatheia, a state of inner serenity where unhealthy and excessive emotions no longer govern your actions. The modern word apathy implies a listless indifference, a lack of caring. But Stoic apatheia is the opposite. It is a vibrant, clear-minded calm that allows you to care deeply and act effectively, guided by wisdom instead of being whipped into a frenzy by every storm of feeling. The Stoics saw passions like blind rage, consuming envy, or paralyzing fear as diseases of the soul. They were not natural feelings, but the result of assenting to false judgments about what is good and bad. Epictetus classified them as violent and excessive impulses which are disobedient to reason. The ideal was not to feel nothing, but to cultivate eupatheiae, good feelings that flow from rational judgment, such as a quiet joy instead of giddy elation, or a reasoned caution instead of irrational terror. Imagine you discover a colleague has taken credit for your work in a major presentation. The raw, initial passion is a surge of rage. It feels hot and justified. It screams for an immediate, dramatic confrontation, for public shaming, for revenge. This is the passion in control. Now, picture the response from a place of apatheia. You feel the same initial impression of injustice, but you do not assent to the judgment that you have been irreparably harmed or that the world is now fundamentally unfair. You pause, you allow the heat of the feeling to wash over you without letting it dictate your next move. Your reasoned mind then takes the lead. You might feel a clear, firm resolve to address the situation. You schedule a private conversation, state the facts without theatrical accusation, and seek a correction. Your action is just as powerful, perhaps more so, but it is precise, controlled, and effective, unclouded by the destructive chaos of rage. It comes from a place of strength, not a place of being emotionally overpowered. So, take a quiet moment and look inward at your own emotional landscape. Which one passion most frequently storms the gates of your peace? Is it a flash of temper in traffic, a gnawing envy of a peer's success, or a cold dread of future what-ifs? Now, gently interrogate that feeling. What is the specific judgment lying beneath it? If it is envy, is the judgment that their success diminishes your own? If it is fear, is the judgment that a potential future event will be unmanageable? By identifying the faulty judgment, you hold the key to disarming the passion itself, reclaiming the calm clarity that is your birthright. What if you could never fail as long as you defined success correctly? This is the liberating promise of the 21st habit, focusing on process over outcome. You redirect your entire sense of achievement away from the external prize you cannot command, and toward the internal quality of your own effort, which you command completely. Your success ceases to be a distant destination you may never reach, and becomes the very road you are walking, a journey you can master with every single step. The Stoic finds their victory not in winning, but in competing well, in acting with virtue and excellence regardless of the final score. Your job is to aim the arrow with all your skill. The wind, the target, the final flight path, these belong to fortune. The ancient teacher Epictetus used the perfect analogy for this. He compared the Stoic life to that of an archer. The archer's goal is to do all within their power to fire a successful shot. They must carefully select their bow, steady their stance, take precise aim, and release the string with a smooth and controlled motion. All of this is within the archer's control, but once the arrow leaves the bow, it is subject to 1,000 factors beyond their command. a sudden gust of wind may push it off course. The target might move, the arrow could even strike perfectly, only to shatter on some hidden flaw. Has the archer failed, according to Stoic wisdom? Absolutely not. The archer's success was in the flawless execution of their craft, the virtuous process of aiming well. The final hit or miss is an external event, a preferred outcome perhaps, but not the source of their worth or their peace. Now apply this to the modern arena of a job search. The outcome, getting a specific job offer, is not fully within your control. It depends on the pool of other candidates, the hiring manager's subjective preferences, the company's shifting budget, all factors you cannot influence. If you define your success by the offer, you set yourself up for anxiety and despair with every rejection. But if you define your success by the process, everything shifts. Your victory is in researching each company with genuine curiosity, in crafting a tailored and honest application, in preparing thoroughly for each interview and communicating your value with clarity and integrity. Each of these actions is a well-aimed arrow. You can complete a perfect process and still receive a rejection, and yet, by the only standard that truly matters, you have succeeded. You have acted with diligence and character. You have done your part. The rest is not your business. So take a moment and choose one goal you are currently pursuing. It might be a fitness target, a creative project, or a personal relationship you are trying to improve. Now, on a piece of paper or just in your mind, answer this question. What would a truly virtuous process toward this goal look like, completely detached from the outcome? List the specific actions, the attitudes, the qualities of effort that would represent your very best, regardless of the final result. This is your new definition of success, a definition that places your tranquility and your self-respect permanently within your own hands. Everything you see, this room, your body, your memories, is in a state of gentle, constant dissolution. Nothing stands still. The Stoics understood this as a fundamental law of the universe, a principle they called panta rei, meaning everything flows. To fight this current, to clutch desperately at things that are by their very nature fleeting, is to invite a special kind of suffering. This 20-second habit, contemplating the impermanence of all things, is your training for letting the river of existence carry you, instead of fighting to build a dam against it. Marcus Aurelius painted this picture with stunning clarity. He wrote, "Time is like a river made up of the events which happen, and its current is strong. No sooner does a thing appear than it is swept away, and another comes in its place and will be swept away too." He was not being morbid. He was offering you a key to liberation. When you deeply absorb that all things, from empires to emotions, are born to change and to die, your frantic grip on them naturally loosens. You begin to hold the world with an open hand. Consider a cherished object in your home, perhaps a piece of jewelry passed down through your family or a book signed by a favorite author. You treasure it, and rightly so. But now apply this contemplation. Imagine that object 100 years from now. The metal may be tarnished and bent, the paper brittle and yellowed. It might be in a museum case, or more likely, it will have dissolved back into the earth, its atoms scattered. Its beauty and meaning were real, but they were always temporary. The Stoic insight is that its true value was never in its permanent possession, but in the use you made of it, the joy it brought you, the connection it represented while it was in your care. This is how you reframe your relationship with everything you love. You stop trying to own the river and you learn to enjoy the swim, so find a quiet moment today. Look at one thing you prize, something you feel a strong attachment to. Hold it in your hands now, gently contemplate its inevitable journey. It will not last forever. Notice the feeling that arises in your chest. Is it a pang of sadness, a resistance, a fear? Simply observe that feeling without judgment. This honest observation is the first, profound step toward a deeper appreciation that is free from the anxiety of loss. What is the one thing you own that you truly could not live without? The answer, of course, is nothing you can purchase. This realization is the foundation of the 23rd habit, the art of contentment with little. This is not a call to poverty, but a training in mental freedom. It is the practice of finding genuine sufficiency and even a sense of abundance in a simple life, systematically reducing your dependence on external comforts as the source of your happiness. Our culture screams that more is better, that the next acquisition will finally complete you. But the Stoic understands that desires are a bottomless pit, while your true needs are remarkably few. Freedom is not getting everything you want, it is genuinely wanting what you already possess. Seneca explored this with piercing clarity in his work on the happy life. He argued that a happy life is impossible without a sound mind, and a sound mind is one that is content with itself, not one that chases after endless luxuries. He wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. True wealth is a state of mind, a realization that you already have enough to exercise your virtue and live a good life." Epictetus, who began his life as a slave, had a similarly sharp perspective on material possessions. He taught his students to use wealth without clinging to it, to enjoy comforts while being fully prepared to let them go without a pang of regret. He reminded them that wealth is not the solution to anxiety, it is often the cause. Think of the feeling you get after a major decluttering of your home. You look at the bags of items you once thought were essential, and you feel not loss but a palpable sense of lightness and space. The clutter was not just in your closet, it was in your mind. Or consider the choice between an extravagant multi-course meal that leaves you feeling heavy and sluggish, and a simple, nourishing dish that leaves you satisfied and clear-headed. The simpler option often brings a deeper, more lasting kind of pleasure, one that does not come with a hangover of regret or the anxiety of the bill. The goal is to prove to yourself through direct experience that your peace is not housed in your possessions. So here is a practical challenge for your own life. Propose to yourself a Stoic week. For the next 7 days, consciously choose to reduce one single luxury or convenience you normally rely on. It could be skipping your daily coffee shop visit and making your coffee at home, turning off streaming services for the evening and reading instead, or committing to not buying any new non-essential items. As you do this, observe the effect on your mind with the curiosity of a scientist. Do you feel a sense of lack and deprivation, or do you discover a quiet liberation? Do you find your attention turning inward to the resources of your own character that were always there, waiting beneath the noise of consumption? This experiment is how you test the Stoic hypothesis that less can indeed be more, and that the greatest riches are the ones no one can ever take from you. Between what happens to you and your response, there is a space. In that space is your power. This is the 24th habit, the discipline of responding instead of reacting. That small gap, which can feel as fleeting as a single heartbeat, is the very ground where your freedom is won or lost. It is the moment you reclaim authorship of your actions from the automatic scripts of emotion. Your character does not live in the initial spark of feeling, but in the deliberate action you choose after the spark has faded. This principle is the living pulse of Epictetus' teaching that our power lies not in external events, but in our choice of how to meet them. He reminded his students that we are not disturbed by what happens, but by our opinion about it, and that opinion is formed and acted upon in that critical space. When you learn to inhabit that pause, you are no longer a puppet jerked by the strings of circumstance. You become the puppeteer holding the strings of your own reasoned will. Consider the modern scenario of receiving an angry, accusatory email. The stimulus is the notification, the bold text on the screen. The automatic reaction is a visceral surge of heat, a tightening in the chest, and an immediate, burning urge to type a furious defense or a sharp counterattack. This is the animal instinct to fight back, but if you send that email, you have handed your power over to the sender. You have allowed their state of mind to dictate your own. Now picture the alternative. You see the email, you feel the same initial flash of anger, but then you consciously create the space. You close the laptop. You stand up and walk away. You take 3 slow, deep breaths, focusing only on the air filling your lungs and leaving your body. In that space, your rational mind comes back online. You can now consider the email not as a personal attack, but as a piece of data. Perhaps the sender is under immense pressure. Maybe there was a simple misunderstanding. You can now craft a response from a place of calm strength, one that addresses the content without mirroring the hostility. Your reply might be, "Thank you for sharing your concerns. Let me look into this and get back to you with a full understanding." The situation is the same, but your power has been asserted. You have chosen your response, and in doing so, you have rewritten the entire story of that interaction. Your challenge for tomorrow is to practice building this space with the smallest of frictions. Before you snap at a family member for leaving a mess, before you honk your horn in traffic, before you type a terse message, insert a deliberate 3-second pause. In that pause, do nothing but breathe, feel the impulse rise and then feel it settle. Then, and only then, allow your action to emerge. This tiny ritual is the gym where you build the muscle of your freedom, one conscious breath at a time. Nothing is inherently good or bad. Your judgment makes it so. This 25th habit is a declaration of independence from the automatic labels your mind slaps onto every experience. It asks you to see the raw events of your life as neutral material, like unshaped clay, waiting for your hands to give them meaning through your use of them. The Stoics classified everything outside your own virtue, from wealth to poverty, health to illness, as indifferent. They are not good or bad in themselves. The only true good is the wise, courageous, and just where you choose to use them. Centuries later, Shakespeare gave this Stoic truth its most famous voice when he wrote, "There is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so." But the root is far older. Epictetus taught that what truly upsets people is not the things themselves, but their judgments about the things. And Marcus Aurelius constantly drilled into his own mind that external things are not the problem. It is your assessment of them, and you can erase that assessment right now. The event itself is a blank slate, and your judgment is the chalk. Consider a sudden, heavy rainstorm that cancels your long-anticipated outdoor picnic. One person immediately judges this as a disaster. They fume at the clouds, lament the ruined food, and sink into a whole day of frustration. Their use of the event is to fuel resentment. Another person experiences the exact same downpour. They see the same gray sky and falling water, but they withhold the immediate label of bad. Instead, they bring the rain inside. They use the unexpected indoor time to finally read that book that has been sitting on their shelf, or to play a board game with their family, filling the house with laughter they would have missed. Their use of the event is to create connection and quiet joy. The storm was identical. The only difference was the judgment placed upon it and the action that followed. Now bring this into your own day. Think of one single, neutral event that already happened to you today. Perhaps your morning train was delayed by 5 minutes. Or a colleague gave you a piece of feedback, or you had to wait in a long line for lunch. Now actively perform a mental exercise. First, imagine placing a negative judgment on this event. See it as an irritating delay, a personal criticism, or a frustrating waste of your precious time. Feel the emotional weight that judgment creates. Now, wipe that slate clean. Imagine placing a completely different, positive, or at least neutral judgment on the exact same event. The delay is a chance to stand still and observe the world for a moment. The feedback is a free data point for your growth. The wait in line is an opportunity to practice patience. The event has not changed, but your entire experience of it has been rewritten by the single most powerful author you know, yourself. What if you took a break from the very things you think you need? This final, 26th habit is the practice of self-denial for clarity, a conscious and temporary fast from the comforts and distractions that form the background hum of your daily life. It is not an act of punishment, but a profound experiment in perception. You voluntarily step away from a pleasure or a convenience to test a simple hypothesis, that you are more self-sufficient than your habits have led you to believe, and that by creating a small void, you sharpen your appreciation and focus to a razor's edge. This builds directly on the foundation of voluntary discomfort, but here the emphasis shifts from building resilience to cleansing the lens of your mind, breaking the automatic chains of habit that dull your senses and cloud your judgment. The Stoic teacher Musonius Rufus was a powerful advocate for this kind of training. He argued that practicing hardship was necessary not for its own sake, but to prove that a human being can live a complete and flourishing life without an excess of external things. He taught that through such practice we discover that we need very little to be content, and that this discovery is the source of tremendous mental freedom. Seneca, too, regularly engaged in what he called his periods of poverty. He would forego his usual comforts for a few days at a time, eating plain food, wearing rough clothing, and sleeping on a hard bed. He did this to ask himself a direct question: is this the condition that I feared? The answer he always found was a resounding no. This practice was his way of ensuring that his peace was not held hostage by his possessions. Consider the modern ritual of the digital detox. For 24 hours, you commit to turning off all non-essential screens, your phone, your computer, your television. The initial hours might feel strange, even anxiety-inducing, as your mind reaches for the familiar distraction of a notification or a scroll. But as the silence settles, a new space opens. You might notice the quality of the afternoon light in a way you haven't in years. You might find yourself actually listening to the full story a loved one is telling, without the phantom urge to check your device. Your attention, no longer fractured into 1,000 digital pieces, begins to coalesce. You remember what it is to be bored, and in that boredom, a quiet creativity often stirs. Or try a day of intentional silence, speaking only when absolutely necessary. This is not about isolation, but about observing the internal chatter that normally gets externalized. You become a witness to your own impulsive thoughts and judgments, and in that witnessing, you gain a new level of control over them. The goal is to create a small crisis of habit, forcing your mind to wake up and engage with the world directly, without its usual crutches. So your final challenge, the capstone to these 26 habits, is this: choose one common pleasure or habitual convenience, something you engage with daily, and intentionally forego it for the next 48 hours. It could be coffee, social media, streaming entertainment, or even the simple act of speaking in complaint. As you move through this brief experiment, keep a small journal. Note the initial cravings, the moments of rationalization that whisper just once won't hurt. But more importantly, document the quiet insights that emerge in the empty space you have created. What did you notice that was always there but previously drowned out? What inner resource did you discover that you didn't know you possessed? This act of conscious subtraction is not an end, but a powerful new beginning, a master key for clearing the mental clutter and rewriting your story with unwavering clarity. These 26 habits are not a checklist to complete, but a single, interwoven system for rebuilding your mind from the ground up. They are the individual threads in a tapestry of unshakable resilience. The entire Stoic journey boils down to one radical truth. You rewrite your life not by altering the world around you, but by fundamentally changing how you see it. Your judgments, your perceptions, your focus, these are the raw materials for your transformation. The circumstances remain the same paper, but you learn to write a different story with a new, unbreakable pen. Seneca captured the urgency of this inner work with a call that echoes across the centuries. He wrote, "Begin at once to live, and count each separate day as a separate life." Do not wait for the perfect moment, for the right conditions, or for a sign. Your new life begins the instant you choose to apply even one of these principles. We have traveled through the core territories of this new landscape, from the foundational sorting of the dichotomy of control to the clear-eyed lens of objective perception, from the courageous action of turning obstacles into fuel to the profound peace found in our essential connection to others. This is the complete architecture for a life of purpose and serenity. Your path forward starts with a single, deliberate step. Do not feel you must master all 26 habits at once. That is the voice of the old, overwhelmed story. The new story is written one sentence, one choice at a time. Look back over these habits and choose just one, the one that called out to you most strongly, to practice with intention for the next week. It could be the morning contemplation, the evening review, or simply practicing the pause before you react. Then share your choice in the comments below. Tell us which habit you are beginning with and why it resonates. Let this be more than a video you watch. Let it be the first page of a new chapter, written in a community of fellow travelers all committed to the same noble work of rewriting their story.